Alright. Is Cacta happy with the new Switch OLED? There we go. He's spoken, everybody.
He has spoken.
There's a reason why I think now we didn't see this actually at E3 2021. There was a lot of hype and a lot of people expected to see a Switch Pro. We've seen the Switch Pro. It was announced overnight actually, just before we went to bed actually. We were on Twitter, it's all announced, and of course it's come with a lot of people excited as well as some people not so excited. Let's get into it, the features, what we think, and let's talk about how they handled this, because I think this is pretty interesting. A lot of people were expecting a lot more. All this and more after the drop.
You gotta wear a different jumper. You've worn that four times right?
I'm doing the colour stuff and everything.
Are people gonna notice?
You reckon?
It's not a blue suit. It's a blue jumper.
Carl Stephen in Australia, guys. He wore the same suit for 2 years in a row on set.
No one noticed. No one noticed.
Alright, let's do it. Yep.
So, overnight, with just nothing but a tweet, with no fanfare.
Nothing at all.
Nintendo announced that, yes, there is a new Switch model. It is called the Switch OLED.
OLED model. OLED model.
Yeah. Which is a terrible name, by the way. But I guess it's, you know what it is. And we have these models for comparison.
Well, we've got the Switch Lite. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the Switch Normal.
And we've actually also got the OLED here. The actual model came in the mail. Let me just get it for you guys.
Oh no, it's this one here.
Here it is here. So look, as you can see, it is a bit bigger. I'm excited to use it actually. All jokes aside, great joke, worth it.
We went balls deep on
definitely
that one.
we went balls deep on that one.
No, so look, there's
Let's talk about the actual features.
Yeah, there's not many to talk about. You have really three. You've got the OLED screen, which the original Switch I think was 6.2 inches LCD. This is a 7-inch OLED.
0.8 inches can make the difference.
It makes a world of difference.
It can make a world of difference.
Don't understate it.
Don't worry. Even just 0.8 inches in total, sometimes that's enough.
It's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing. Also comes with an Ethernet port now in the dock, which is interesting. And
the stand.
And the stand, actually.
The kickstand.
That's interesting
The
itself.
original kickstand on this Switch is the biggest piece of shit that has ever been included on a consumer product.
It actually is horrendous.
Look at this thing. It is the flimsiest.
It's horrendous.
It doesn't even do anything.
They didn't even put one on the Switch Lite, I don't think.
It's all. You know what it really does? All it does is hide where the
no Switch Lite one.
Hides where the SD card goes. That's it.
Yeah.
So they're actually making a usable stand, which is good. It should have been in the first instance. OLED screen. Now, a lot of people have been drawing the comparison to the PS Vita.
Yes.
Which in 2011, I love the Vita, had an OLED screen on launch. That's 10 years ago. So the inclusion of an OLED screen here in and of itself isn't anything groundbreaking. People were really hoping for a bump in resolution, or more importantly, a bump in power. And I think this is where people are a bit peeved at Nintendo. You can certainly see why they downplayed everything at E3. We're just focusing on software.
Yeah.
Because if they'd announced this at E3, everyone would have lost their shit.
I actually disagree with that. I think maybe E3 was a better time to just jumble it in with all the actual, with the Nintendo Direct. I think a 45-minute Nintendo Direct with all these kind of huge titles and talking about Skyward Sword and stuff, throw it in the middle, then people would have had other things to focus on, and I think it would have set the expectation a little bit better. I think that there was a leak, of course, with I think it was on Amazon.com or whatever, few storefronts that were having Switch Pro or the new Switch kind of listed, so people were expecting a big announcement. I think they should have handled this different, but before we get there, we should also talk about there's also new audio in this thing, and there's also going to be new colors, and the actual dock itself seems to be a little bit larger, so there are some
There's a new Joy-Con color.
There's a new Joy-Con color.
So that's the thing with the Switch.
But there's also the bezels, I think, and the white ones.
They don't have to change this at all. All they do is change the color of the Joy-Cons, and they have a new color system.
Yeah, but
I think to the point of the E3 announcement, I think they couldn't possibly have announced it at E3 because Switch Pro speculation was at an all-time high. Yep. People with, everyone I was waiting, I was like, when are we going to get this announcement? It's happening, it's imminent. All the reports were saying the Switch Pro is going to be announced ahead of E3.
On the 3rd of June and shit, people were saying, and that came and went.
I think Nintendo needed to wait. When no one's been talking about the Switch Pro for the last 2 weeks. Everyone's just forgotten about it, so they're like, okay, cool. let's announce a Switch OLED. Let's do it now. Let's get it out in a tweet, and then we're done with it.
Yeah. Look, I personally think that there was a better way to handle this. If we look at Twitter, for instance, I mean, it was only announced last night, but some people are like, oh wow, this looks great. A lot of people are like, really? This is the Switch Pro that we were going to get. It's also been confirmed from Tom Warren, the senior editor at The Verge, that there is no upgrade to GPU, there is no upgrade to RAM, there is no upgrade to performance of this.
Or battery.
Because I think before, when it was originally announced, last night, a lot of people were like, no, wait guys, they're going to talk about performance. Well, I think it's been confirmed now. It's pretty clear that this has no graphical upgrades whatsoever. And you were saying before something interesting. You were hoping that they were going to give you some sort of, upgrade at least in the menu. So if they were going to give you a handheld, you wanted at least 1080p.
I just want just give me a 1080p resolution. Like, I don't care if the game's run at 720p. The menu on the Switch just doesn't look good. Like, the thing that really annoys me is they just haven't obviously got enough headroom even for the eShop. Like, I want to.
Horrendous.
I use the Switch every day. I play the Switch. I use my Switch like I use my phone every day, like all the time. I play a lot of Binding of Isaac.
Do you watch certain videos on there too?
Well, there's workarounds. But, I use it every day. Like, and I always want to go through the eShop and look at new titles and look at the sales. I literally load in. The eShop takes 12 seconds
it's
just
ridiculous.
To load.
It was like PlayStation
And then when you're
3.
there, you get a white screen with the orange banner on the side.
Yeah.
And then you have to wait for the actual headings to load. Yeah. And the headings load. And then you're waiting for the content on each heading to actually load to see what games are available. It is so unusable that I've certainly spent less money than I would have.
Definitely.
Because the store sucks.
It's a pain in the butt.
I don't understand why they can't work
It's
this
so
out.
pleasant to go through the PlayStation 5 store. Remember we were talking about the other day, like how seamless it is now?
100%.
It's such a
And
great
Xbox.
experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I do agree with that. I think you're right.
So
maybe something could have been done to facilitate more transactions.
I suppose my point is that the Switch is beginning to feel old.
Yes.
It's only 4 years old. If you use a PS4, it's not great anymore, but it's still very good.
Yeah, it still feels
it still works.
present.
And that's 10 years old. The Switch is, maybe 8 years old, whatever. The Switch is 4 years old, and there's just so many. Yeah, it needs some quality of life improvements. I don't know if it's to do with I'm pretty sure that the Switch eShop is like a browser-based thing. Maybe it's to do with like
Connecting to the service.
Maybe it's just to do with how the Switch handles like a browser-based interface. I don't know, but it sucks. It needs to be fixed. So I can see why there's a lot of people online who are upset about this. But to play devil's advocate, I can also see why Nintendo wouldn't necessarily want to fragment their audience on what is still an extraordinarily highly selling platform that shows no signs of slowing down. There is a case to be made for the fact that if something is available on Switch, you want it to be available on all Switches.
Yeah.
You don't want like a new 3DS situation where I think it was. I was working at EB Games at the time, so I can't really remember.
GameStop or
I think there was a Xenoblade game that was only available on the new 3DS. And so people were coming in, they're like, I want to get the new game. They're like, do you have the old 3DS? They're like, and they say yes. And I say, well, you have to buy the new one. And it had a slightly faster chipset, but it was still a 3DS. And so what you do is you end up fragmenting your audience. And it just causes problems. And I don't think Nintendo need to do that at this stage, but it would be nice if they would upgrade us.
I think the precedent's already been set with Xbox One X, PlayStation Pro. They made sure that all developers had to make sure that all games worked on all platforms. I think that Switch is even in a harder camp because its hardware is even less powerful. For them to start doing a Switch Pro and the next gen now is moving forward and new games are being created for that, it is in this space where the current Switch is going to be left behind. If a Switch Pro does come along, is it going to be powerful enough to kind of contend with next gen games downgraded, or does it have to separate entirely? I don't know.
Are they going to Dennis it?
Are they going to data
the data system? You got to separate entirely.
You got to separate entirely.
But I mean, I think it's important to remember that Nintendo very much exists within their own ecosystem, and the only.
But that's only partly. Yes, that's definitely true. But the Switch, I think part of the Switch's strength, before you go on, is now integrating so many third parties. It's great to play Mario Party. It's great to play Zelda. It's also great if you want to play Doom, or if you want to play Among Us, or if you want to, I mean, Among Us is fine, but like other games that are really popular franchises, you know, Dark Souls, like things that are like announced and they come on Switch and you can sit on the bus and play wherever you are. That's really cool, and I love that. And I think that's part of the offering now to allow third parties to also be on a portable system.
I just disagree with that entirely. I think the huge appeal of the Switch is undoubtedly Nintendo's first party.
Yep,
and the simple fact that you don't really have, for what it's worth, I think there is simply no greater platform to play indies that don't require mouse. Like, there is nothing better
with the touch screen.
Like, as long as you don't need a cursor or a mouse, there is no better platform than the Switch to play an indie. The hybrid nature of being able to put it on the TV or play in bed or play on the John, like, you can just, it's this little thing. You can have so many games on it because so many indies are like a couple meg, some are a couple gig. But you can cram this with games, and it's just such a nice interface, or such a nice way to play those smaller experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Nintendo really, really has their strengths. So I do see why they might not necessarily want to do a Pro while this is doing so well. And I think it's worth mentioning that out of all the console manufacturers, Nintendo were the first ones, really, to fragment their audience with a handheld in the 3DS. You know what I mean? Like, they've done this. They've done the new 3DS. Maybe they saw, this is speculation, I don't know, but maybe they saw it wasn't a good idea. Maybe they saw that there wasn't really a large uptick in purchases of the new 3DS because people didn't want better running 3DS games. They just wanted, like,
a big catalog.
They just wanted Professor Layton. They just wanted the normal stuff that they're playing. So, I mean, I'm going to buy one. I am pre-ordering it as soon as it's available.
I play mostly my Switch Lite, so I'm probably not going to do it. But
I'm poo-pooing it a bit here, but as soon as it is available to purchase, I am pre-ordering it.
100%.
I use the Switch so much.
Yeah.
I love OLED, and I still have the OG Switch from day one, so it gets about 17 minutes of battery life before I need to connect it to a charger.
I actually got the upgraded version, but look, we'll have to see what happens here. But I do agree with you. But there's going to be some time in the future that Nintendo will have to address their power issue in terms of new games are coming out. It's going to be some sort of Switch Pro, and then we're going to see if there's going to be a new kind of generation starting with Switch, or if it's just going to be tried to be all tied together. We'll have to see.
I see it being that. I see it being... I don't think we're going to get a Switch Pro. I think we're going to get a Switch 2. I don't see a Pro happening. If Nintendo are going to do this after 4 years, when everyone's been everyone has been begging Nintendo for a bump in power, or a bump in resolution, or something, and they're not doing it. They're not talking about it. I don't see it happening until Switch 2.
Yeah. All right, we'll have to see, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love you, appreciate you. We'll see you guys next time. Laymen out!